Welcome to the Prosperous Christian Therapist podcast. Today's episode is all about how to boost your referrals through networking with churches. If you thought about adding churches to your list of referral resources, but you're unsure how to actually do that, then you're going to love this episode. I'll share with you my process for making contact with the right people, the script I use to invite them into a meaningful connection, and ultimately how you can make networking with churches fruitful for your practice. So grab your coffee and get ready to take some notes. Thanks for joining me for today's episode.
Hey, Christian therapist, are you craving a counseling career that aligns with your faith and actually supports your well being? Welcome to the Prosperous Christian Therapist podcast. I'm Kimberly Van Hooser, Christian therapist, private practice owner, and business coach for mental health professionals like you. In this podcast, you'll get practical strategies and faith led guidance to help you build a thriving private practice, one that serves your clients well and makes an impact for the kingdom of God. So, what are you waiting for? Grab your notebook and join me for today's episode.
Welcome to the Prosperous Christian Therapist podcast. I'm so glad that you're here joining me today for today's episode, all about networking with churches. I want to let you in on a little secret. When I first started my practice, networking was absolutely terrifying for me. I'm an introvert and I struggle with social anxiety. So the idea of reaching out to another professional that I never met before and inviting them to go out to coffee was pretty scary for me. Furthermore, I didn't really know how to even begin. When I first started in a private practice setting, my supervisor used to have me do cold calls at churches. She would encourage me to show up unannounced at churches, walk in, see if the office was open, and if there was anyone willing to meet with me so I could tell them about my counseling services. I found this both time consuming and fruitless. I spent countless hours driving around Los Angeles looking for parking, which, if any of you are familiar with that city, you know is quite the feat. And then only to discover that most of the time the church offices were either closed, the pastor wasn't there, or if someone was there, they weren't free and available to speak with me. I can also only imagine looking back now what it must have felt like for me to show up unannounced. I was much more likely to be an interruption or a burden to the person I was meeting with rather than being a blessing. That's really not the best way to start off a meaningful referral relationship. It's important when you go to meet with someone that they are ready to meet with you, that they're excited, that they've given their yes to it, versus just dropping in unannounced and expecting them to rearrange their day to make time for you. Since my early days of private practice, I've really developed a much better method that is more effective in saving me time, and it also considers the person that I'll be meeting with. And today I'm going to teach you what that method is. Sometimes it can feel super overwhelming to get started when you know that you want to network with the church, but where do you even begin? What I generally do is pull up an Excel spreadsheet and I do a Google search on the churches in my area, and I just start to list out all the different organizations that are nearby. If you're a fully virtual private practice, it's perfectly reasonable to network with churches that are all across the state that you're licensed in. You don't have to just do a church that is nearby or local to you. However, if you have a ton of churches and you're trying to figure out where to begin, I think it's always best to start with the churches that are nearby. Because even if you're just doing virtual, there's more of a personal connection. It's a stronger connection if they know that you're someone who lives in the area. If you live in a super remote area, maybe there aren't a ton of local churches, and you also do offer telehealth. It's a good idea to network or reach out to those churches that are farther away. I would just start with the bigger cities in your state. Find a list of churches there because you're going to have a lot more people and it's a probably a better source of referrals. Just keep in mind if you are reaching out to a church that is several hours away and you're not actually able to meet in person, that you don't offer meeting in person as an option when you're contacting them. Once you have a list of churches on your Excel sheet, I think it's helpful to do just a little bit of research to see which ones might be my best options to contact. Now, if there aren't very many churches in your area, or you just want to start with five and email all of them, that's totally fine. But I usually like to look at which ones might be the most effective sources for referrals for me. So, things that I look for on their website is how large they are. Do they have a care or counseling department? Do they appear to be mental health friendly? What kind of groups are they offering to their congregation currently? Do they have a divorce recovery or grief share or celebrate recovery? Because usually, if they're offering those, it kind of shows that they're open to people getting help through the course of therapy. And that just means they might be a little bit more open to hearing from a therapist in the area. It's really not a bad idea to reach out to churches, even if they are smaller, even if they don't have a really obvious or dedicated care team, because a client's a client. And these churches actually might be in more need of having a therapist contact them because they already don't have a department that is meeting the emotional health needs of their clients. I think for myself, the way my time is structured right now, I don't have a ton of time to be meeting people for coffee or to network. So when I have a whole list of churches, I like to kind of narrow it down to which ones are going to be most effective for me, especially if I'm only going to be able to reach out or connect with people in person just a limited number of hours during the month. But if you're new and you're just getting started, or you haven't really taken the time to build a huge referral network, then just go ahead and take a chance. Make a list on all the churches. It doesn't take very long to send an email, so it's okay to email every single church on your list. Once I have my list of churches, I try to find the best email address to send my emails to. And some churches, if they are very large, will have tons of different people you can email. And I usually don't want to send out 20 different emails to every person on the list. So, what I'll do is try to find the best person who might be most likely to be the one where they need to meet with a therapist in order to refer people to. So, I might see if they have a care department or someone who's in charge of pastoral care. I'll definitely email that person. Sometimes if it's just the pastor and a couple of other leaders, I'll still email the pastor or the head of the church. That's not a bad place to start. Some churches will just have a general info link or an administrative email. And if that's the case and there's not a person's name attached to it, I'll just make sure in my email that I say like, "Hey, this is what I'm doing, and can you direct me to the right person to speak to about this?" You're also welcome to call churches. Sometimes they don't answer, but if that's something where you're a little bit confused about who to reach out to, just picking up the phone and calling and seeing if you can contact the secretary there and just letting them know who you are, what you're planning to do, and who the right person would be to connect with, then they can direct you there. But in general, if you're looking for email addresses, looking for someone who's head of the care department, if you have a special niche where you work with teens or kids, or maybe it's women, then reaching out to the person who heads up that ministry can be a great idea. A lot of times I will send an email to the person who's in charge of youth ministry because I work with a lot of teens. If you work primarily with women, if there's a women's pastor, then that might be a great place to send an email as well too. You can send multiple emails to different people at the same church, but the important part is just trying to make sure that those emails are going to the right place. So, what I do next is actually draft my email. And so, the main things you want to include your email is who the letter is to, why you're reaching out, who you are and who you work with, and an invitation to meet or connect. It doesn't have to be perfect. I've sent so many emails to churches in the past 10 years, and I know my wording hasn't always been perfect, and I haven't always used the exact same script, but somehow it has worked for me. So, all you're doing is really opening up an opportunity to connect. You're sharing a little bit about who you are and why you're reaching out, and just let them take it from there. I'll go ahead and leave in the description of the episode a sample script that you can use as you're modeling and drafting your emails, but I'll also go ahead and share it here. Obviously, you can make changes to make it more personable to you, but I might say something like, "Hi, Pastor Bob. I'm Kimberly. I'm a Christian therapist who recently started a practice in the area, and I'm looking to connect with local churches in order to learn how I can be a resource to those who might be in need of therapy. I specialize in working with teens and women with anxiety, depression, and self harm, and I love integrating faith into the process of therapy when given the opportunity. I would love the chance to meet with you in person or via Zoom to get to know you and share more about the work that I do. You can also learn more about my practice here and then I leave my website. Please let me know if you're interested and when you might be available to meet. I look forward to connecting with you." So keep it relatively short and sweet. You want to make it inviting. Don't overthink it too much. Just send the invitation. Make note in your Excel marketing sheet who you sent the email to and when, because then you can do a follow up if you don't hear back. And then make sure whatever you put in your email that it's actually something that you're able to follow through on. So if this is a church that's super far away from you and you're not actually willing to meet in person, don't offer that. And then if you offered them Zoom, make sure you know how to work Zoom. Now, it's highly possible that you're not going to get a response from even a majority of the emails that you send out. So, what I like to do is usually send a follow up in about a week if I don't hear back. But you have to understand that people are super busy. And if they're, especially if they're not the ones who are like out there looking for a therapist, you're just reaching out to them. Hey, like, I don't even know if you need to talk to a therapist, but here I am. So, we have to expect that people are going to forget. They might even delete the email. That's okay. Don't take offense from that. But it is important to be willing to do some follow up. So usually in about a week, if I don't hear back, I'll say something like, "Hi there, I'm Kimberly. I'm a local Christian therapist. I reached out about a week ago as I'm working on connecting with local churches to see how my counseling practice can be a resource to those in need. Would you be interested in meeting with me in person or via Zoom at a time that is convenient to you? I'd love to hear back from you. Thank you." Now, if you don't hear back from that second follow-up email, that is okay. You might have gotten some responses from other churches, so you have some movement forward where you can be setting up coffee dates or in-person meetings with the people who have responded. But it's also not a bad thing to either call that church, you can leave a message if they don't answer, and that can help just kind of jog the person's memory and helps you stand out in their mind a little bit because it wasn't just some email that they can just delete. So that's an option for you. Another thing that's a good practice to do is just send some sort of generic email to the church once every quarter. You can just let them know, like, hey, this is who I am. This is who I work with. If you have anyone that might be in need of therapy, I'd love if you would consider me. And if you're ever willing or wanting to meet in person to learn more about my practice, I'd be happy to connect. Please respond at any time. Something like that, that just kind of lets them know, hey, I'm here. And if you have need of me, you know where to find me. And I'll always include a link for my website or something so they know how to get a hold of me. And obviously, with my website, they can look at it, they can learn a little bit about who I am without actually taking the time to meet with me in person. And just to encourage you, there have been so many times where I've received calls from interested clients who, when I ask them where they got my information, they name a church that I actually never did a meeting in person with someone. I think sometimes what can happen is the people working in the church, they're so busy, they're so inundated with information and people who are needing them that they don't necessarily take the time to respond to my email, but they'll save my information for later. And they still have it as a resource to give to the people who come in who are looking for therapy. I've learned that it's just my responsibility to get my information out there, and then it's God's responsibility to get it into the hands of the people who need it most. So don't be discouraged if you're not receiving a lot of response right away from people. Just make sure you're consistently marketing and networking and trust that the referrals will come in. One side note that's important to note is pastors can be very busy around Christmas and Easter. So it's not that you can't reach out to churches around those times of years, but just keep in mind if you don't get a response, it could be because they're planning and preparing for those two really major seasons. And it doesn't hurt to send a follow up email after that has passed. So let's say you start getting some responses. You get some pastors and ministry leaders who are wanting to meet with you. What do you do next? Some things that are really important to consider is once more making it as easy and inviting as possible for the person who has agreed to meet with you. So if they're asking for just a Zoom meeting, make sure that you are the one who's willing and knowing how to send the Zoom invite, not expecting them to do that for you. If you're able to meet in person, if that's something that they're willing to do and wanting to do, make sure that you're the one that is willing to drive to them. So don't offer just to meet them halfway. Make sure that you're willing to either drive to the church to meet them, or if they're preferring that they meet at a coffee shop, that it's one that is convenient for them. I usually will have an idea of a coffee shop that is close by to the church because then I have suggestions so they don't even have to do the part of planning. But I might ask them where they'd like to meet if they haven't suggested a place to meet. Sometimes people will actually say, hey, I'd love to meet you at this coffee shop. Okay, great. Then we don't have to worry about it. But if they're like, where would you like to meet? I would probably say something like, I'm happy to meet you at wherever is most convenient for you. I can meet you at your church. There's this great coffee shop near the church. Or if there's another one that you really love, I'm open to suggestions. So that really just leaves it up to them where they're going to be most comfortable and feel best about meeting. Now, if you actually meet them at a coffee shop, I think it's always best practice to be willing and prepared to pay for them. A lot of times people won't expect that. They're totally fine to go half and half. They might actually go up there and purchase their own coffee before you get there. That is fine. You can kind of follow their lead. Sometimes churches or pastors will actually treat you to coffee, which is a lovely gift. But I just think it's nice to just acknowledge, hey, you're doing me a favor by meeting me and taking time out of your day, and I would love to treat you to coffee. So, yes, I know that is more expensive, but try to budget the extra $5 to be willing to do that. I think that goes a long way in just making someone feel heard and special and that you appreciate them. And the more appreciated they feel, then the more likely they are to send referrals your way. So I hope this podcast has been helpful in at least giving you some direction in how to get started with utilizing churches as a source of referrals within your community. It's really been the method for me that I've found least frustrating and the most fruitful. I've tried mailing out brochures or business cards, especially when I first got started several years ago. And that just felt frustrating because, for one, it takes time and money to design a brochure, to print it off, and then to the cost of mailing it. And I know for myself these days, if I get mail that I don't really need, it gets thrown out. Even if I think that I need it at first, I save it on a pile on my desk and eventually it gets thrown away. Really, what we're working for with our marketing and networking is to get to that point of face to face connection, whether it be over Zoom or telehealth or in person. because when you have that more personal connection, that's when they get to know who you really are and can see themselves sending clients your way. So hopefully this will be a great place for you to get started and starting to set up some of those in-person meetings or those virtual meetings with pastors and churches in your community. If you have any further questions about what to do and maybe even what to do, what to say when you actually meet with someone, feel free to reach out. You can head on over to Facebook if you haven't already. Join my free Facebook community, The Prosperous Christian Therapist. You're welcome to post questions in that group. And right now I have the availability to answer those. I also do offer one on one consulting for private practice coaching for Christian therapists. If you are interested in that, please feel free to reach out to me via email. I'll put my email in the description below. But thank you so much for listening today, and I look forward to having you with me in a future episodes.
If you found value in today's episode, would you take a moment to leave a written review on Apple Podcasts? It helps more faith-led therapists like you find the show. And don't forget to join my free Facebook group, The Prosperous Christian Therapist, where you can connect with myself and other fellow clinicians for encouragement, tips, and support. See you there.